Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take live questions on the show. However, we don't always have enough time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure those questions get answered properly in a video, so I gather them up and we address them here on companion videos. And since I have to get my 5 miles in a day, why not kill two birds with one stone and answer them while I'm on my treadmill? So let's not waste any time and get right into the questions that were asked earlier today. And the first one we're going to start getting caught up in comes to us from Adam K, who writes, do you think Favreau still directs Jungle Book 2? Okay, yes, I think he still does that. But with some of the backlash that Lion King's been getting, let's be clear, I effing love Lion King. I think Lion King is awesome. I think the new Lion King is spectacular. Much better than a lot of the other crap, let's call it, that Disney proper has been putting out in the last couple of years. Wrinkle in Time, Nutcracker in the Four Realms, Dumbo. I had a little bit of nervousness going in, but I thought they crushed it with Lion King. Anyway, maybe with some of the backlash, he might be more hesitant to go back to that. He is working on Mandalorian right now. I'm going to guess right now he still does a Jungle Book 2. Because the Jungle Book was fantastic. I think it'd be a shame if he didn't do another one. So I'm going to lean towards, yeah, I think he will. But I mean, don't know for sure. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, next up, Double Crit writes. Where's Double Crit? There he is. Thoughts on Supergirl Season 5 trailer. I gave up on Supergirl a long time ago. I'm not interested in that show, so I haven't watched any trailer for the next season. Josh Jones writes, really want Superman with lens flares. Now, we were talking earlier, because, you know, there's a rumor going around that J.J. Abrams is going to be doing a new Superman film and a Green Lantern Corps film. We talked about that earlier today on the show for Warner Brothers. Whether that's true or not, who knows? Go back and watch the John Campea Show from earlier today, see our more full discussion on that. But sure enough, if J.J. Abrams does do a Man of Steel movie, a Superman movie, you can bet your ass we'll be in store for a lot of delicious lens flare. All right, let's see. Dusan Karasik writes, some say that the reason why Warner Brothers won't make another Superman movie is because Henry is difficult behind the scenes. I love the guy. Can you confirm that? I've never heard that. I've heard nothing but that he is a pleasure to work with. Besides, even if he was difficult to work with behind the scenes, the studio wouldn't care about that. The studio doesn't have to deal with him. The studio's not there on set. The director would have to deal with them. And right now they don't even have a director for the movie. So even if Henry Cavill was a completely difficult guy to work with, and I've never heard anything to suggest that, from either meeting him myself or talking to people who have worked with him, I've never heard anything negative about that he's difficult to work with or anything like that. Now, just because I've never heard anything, that doesn't necessarily mean it's impossible. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he is. All I can tell you is what I know and what I've heard. And what I've known and what I've heard and my personal experience with him has been nothing but positive. Nothing but positive. But once again, even if he were, the studio wouldn't care because they're not the ones who have to work with him. They're not on set with him. So no, and besides, if they really hated an actor, they would just kick the actor and just hire a replacement for them like that. They wouldn't delay their movie by 3 or 4 years. All you gotta do is kick the actor to the curb and just hire a new actor. Just like that. No problem, no muss, no fuss. There'll be a little bit of backlash at first and then everybody will get over it. I mean, that's kind of how it works. So no, I don't buy into that at all, Dusan. I don't buy that at all. Okay, next up. Doug Harris writes, love Deadpool. Deadpool to ask Captain Marvel, celebrate Women's Day with me. That would be quite the scene in the MCU. Again, I don't think Deadpool's going to be joining the MCU. I think that's kind of clear, but anything's possible at some point. But that would make for a hell of a scene if he were to ask Captain Marvel, hey, how would you like to celebrate Women's Day with me? Anyway, Jacob Silvers writes, yesterday was my niece's 11th birthday. Happy birthday to your niece, Jacob. I took her to see The Lion King, and she loved it. That's so great. I wish I could have gone, because I've only still seen it twice. I went to the premiere, and then I went to the press screening the very next day, because I loved it so much. But I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it again, unfortunately. But I got to get back out to the theater to watch it 2 or 3 more times. Not everybody does, and I respect that. But as for me, I effing love Lion King. Love, love, love this movie. And I'm glad your niece did as well, Jacob. All right, next up. Jake Smith writes, went to a 7:05 showing of Crawl last night. Nice, I like that movie very much. With ads and trailers, the movie didn't actually start until 7:35. That's some bull right there. That's some BS. That aside, Crawl was a fun little film. Crawl is a fun little film, and I really enjoyed it. Not top 10 movie of the year, but it's a real fun little movie. I had a really good time with it. Anyway, you know, the movie industry is struggling with, despite the fact that we're seeing some box office records breaking, fact of the matter is, year over year, fewer and fewer people are going to the movies. And it's all about the movie-going experience. Hey, how about this? Maybe we're charging too much for people to go to the movies. You think of that? Or hell, how about this? How about not telling people that they're getting a movie at 7:05 and not starting it for 30 effing minutes later? How about that? How's that for an idea? And now, look, I get it. Theaters generate revenue by playing ads and trailers. I respect that, I do. But there has to come a point where too much is just simply too much. You have to start looking at ways to improve the theater-going experience for people. And how about starting with one of the obvious things? Not starting a movie 20, 25, or 30 minutes after your advertised start time for the movie. You want to show a couple of trailers, that's fine. 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes. But when we start getting into 25 minutes, 27 minutes, 30 minutes for some people, and you wonder why fewer people come out to the movies these days? Because it feels like instead of trying to figure out ways to improve the experience, to give a better experience to people coming to theaters, it seems like we're just coming up with ways to turn them off more. Fewer people are coming out to the movies. I'm sure it has nothing to do with how much it costs to come, or heavens, that we don't start a movie till like 25 minutes after we tell them a movie starts. I'm sure that has nothing to do with it. Let's increase it to 30 minutes. It's just stupid ass backwards thinking. And these movie theaters, and not just the theaters, it's the movie system as a whole. Because the production companies, the distributors, the studios, and the theater chains, they live in this circle of life. They live in a very symbiotic relationship. They have to get together and talk about this, because fewer people are going. How about not doing stupid things that just piss people off? You're not going to meet anybody. Ask all the theater patrons coming out theaters, do you like having to wait an extra 30 minutes for your movie to start? None of them are going to say yes. Again, I'm not holding against them to play a couple of trailers. I'm not begrudging them showing an ad or two, although I hate ads. Trailers are different. Straight up like feminine hygiene products or car commercials. No, but they've got to address this. It's some straight up BS, Jake. Some straight up BS. Anyway, at least you saw a fun movie in Crawl. All right, AKA Alan writes, I'd say Sully was, oh really? The Sully was the worst Tom Hanks movie? Hey, to each their own. All movies are subjective. I thought Sully was quite damn good. I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was an exceptional film. I think Clint Eastwood directed that, didn't he? Anyway, Aaron Eckhart I thought was great in it. Tom Hanks I thought was great in it. Yeah, but hey, if that's Tom Hanks' worst movie to you, then that's what Tom Hanks' worst movie is. Look, I think Tom Hanks' worst film is The Terminal. And a lot of people think I'm crazy for saying that, right? So, hey, to each their own, right? I thought Sully was a really good movie. All right. Don Jariasanot writes, sad news, R.I.P. Rutger Hauer, absolutely. I was really bummed earlier today after the show to see in my social media feed that Rutger Hauer had passed at the age of 75. Too young for that dude, man. Granted, Rutger sometimes looked like he was 105, but I mean, he was such a talented dude. And I'll tell you what, when I think of Rutger Hauer, I know a lot of people say Blade Runner, but I'm not all that big on Blade Runner. I instantly think Lady Hawk. And there's a bunch of other things, Hobo with a Shotgun, and some more obscure things like that too. But when I think of him, Michelle Pfeiffer, Matthew Broderick, that 80s synth soundtrack. I just think of that. Really sad. Now, I'm not going to talk about too much right now, because we are going to talk about that. That's going to be one of our main topics tomorrow on the John Campea Show. So I'm going to save more of my thoughts for that. But yeah, that was very sad news. Age of 75, way too young for a guy like that. And we lost a treasure, man. We lost a treasure, Rutger Hauer. Thanks for sharing that, Don. Warrington Train Spotter writes, could Kevin Spacey make a comeback in Hollywood now? All recent charges have been dropped. I hope so. Well, pump the brakes on that, Warrington, because while it is true that one of the cases against him has been dropped, something about the defendant not willing to do whatever. So charges have been dropped in that case. The reason why I don't think you're going to see him make a comeback now is because there are multiple things going on. Like even in the UK, Scotland Yard is investigating him. And there's multiple other accusers at the same time. So do I think a Hollywood studio is going to take... Now, if all of them end up getting refuted, if all of them get dealt with, then yeah, we might. But one, I don't know. There's still too much. I mean, not to mention a fellow celebrity is still standing back there. Like one of the stars of Star Trek Discovery it was one of the first people, actually probably was the first person to come forward about Spacey. So until all of those get dealt with, no, I don't think you're going to see a Hollywood studio come within 10 feet of him. Which is a shame because prior to all this, I think he's one of the greatest talents in Hollywood. But, I mean, the dismissal of one thing isn't going to change it, unfortunately. It's not. Okay, Ray writes, Cavill never got a fair shake. Man of Steel made more money than Iron Man 1, and I think was just as good, yet it never got a true direct sequel. Well, you're talking to the wrong guy, because to me, Man of Steel was better than Iron Man 1. Not almost as good, not as good. I thought Man of Steel was significantly better than Iron Man 1. It's not the best comic book movie of all time, but I put it in the top 10. I put Man of Steel in the top 10 of all time. I think it's one of the masterpieces of the genre. Anyway, it's not about Henry Cavill. Nobody owes any actor anything. The movies are not about the actors. And they don't deserve anything. They deserve a paycheck. They deserve a good paycheck. And they deserve credit where credit is due. But Man of Steel isn't his, you know. So it's not about... And I love Henry Cavill, my all-time favorite Superman. I love this dude. But it's not about him. And just because you made as much money as Iron Man 1, yeah, but Iron Man 1 came out at a different time. Iron Man 1 was one of the comic book movies that helped make comic book movies the dominant force that they were. So when you come out as another comic book movie later on, and you are the granddaddy of all superheroes, this isn't some obscure... Remember, before Iron Man came out with Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man at best was a low-level B-list superhero. At best. Like now, today, yeah, Iron Man's one of the big superheroes. Well, yeah, today, now. But when the first Iron Man came out, as a matter of fact, this guy right here, I poo-pooed on the idea. It's like, Iron Man, it's just a poor man's Batman. It's a poor man's Bruce Wayne. Rich, mega billionaire dude who has no superpowers, who uses his money to make toys and gadgets that he uses to fight crime with. He's a poor man's Batman. And a lot of people forget about that. Superman is the big granddaddy of all superheroes. That came out, and Man of Steel came out in an era and a time when comic book movies were now becoming the ultimate force at the box office. It wasn't fully established as that yet, but it was up there. All because of the groundwork that had been laid years before with something like Iron Man. So you can't compare the box office results of Man of Steel to that of Iron Man, because you're trying to compare different things and you're forgetting to look at all the circumstances surrounding it. Now remember, you're talking to a guy who vastly prefers Man of Steel over Iron Man 1. I vastly prefer it. I like Iron Man 1, don't get me wrong. I very much do enjoy Iron Man 1, but Superman, Man of Steel, to me, another level. And even I'm saying that, no, you can't compare them that way. And Iron Man being, at best, a low B-level character, and Superman, the highest of the high, the granddaddy of all superheroes, It created a different thing. And unlike Iron Man 1, which was universally loved, Man of Steel came out. A lot of the audience didn't like it. I don't know why, but they didn't. A lot of the critics didn't like it. So there's a lot of differences there, man. While I'm a much bigger fan of Man of Steel, you really can't compare them. They're different situations, so yeah, there's that. And I would have loved to have seen a sequel, but, it didn't make the money to necessitate a sequel. It didn't get the critic reaction to necessitate a sequel, and it didn't get the audience reaction to necessitate a sequel. So they still could have done one, and I wish they did. But you can't blame them for not either at the same time. So that's kind of where we're at with that. All right. Tom Weisenberg writes, was just on the Dutch news site. Yeah, Rutger Hauer has passed away. Such sad news. Probably our greatest movie star. Time to revisit Tears in the Rain. And again, a lot of people will go to one of the all-time classic sci-fi films in Blade Runner. They'll think of Roy, of course, understandably the most famous movie he was ever in. But for me, it'll always be Lady Hawk at the same time. But it's really sad that we lost an icon. All right, Orville Nation writes, the Orville fan films are coming. I don't get why. I mean, don't get me wrong. I watch Orville, and it's a hit and miss show, but some of the episodes are quite good. Some of them are completely crap, but you can say that about a lot of shows. But it's nothing but a Star Trek ripoff. So, don't get me, I'm not bagging on anybody who's a big fan of the show. My wife is a big fan of the show, as a matter of fact. She likes it a hell of a lot more than I do. But I don't get why you'd make fan films or have a really dedicated fan base around a show that by its nature is a blatant ripoff. It's just a Star Trek wannabe show. And it's kind of hit and miss. But, like I said, people like my wife really love the show. And, hey, there are shows that I watch that people think are kind of crappy, so who cares, right? If you like it, great. And if you want to make fan films about it, go right ahead, man, because they probably encourage it. All right. Sully writes, just watched Lion King. It wasn't that great for me. That's too bad. I think it's effing awesome. But I also just watched Aladdin, and I don't know why it has such a low Rotten Tomatoes score. It was fantastic. I was fully expecting to not care about it. Dude, I'm kind of in the same boat. Despite the fact that I love Guy Ritchie, the marketing wasn't really effective for me. Let's just say that. And so I went into Aladdin with very, very tempered expectations. And the first time I watched it, and I mentioned this on the show earlier today, I was very pleasantly surprised. I was really pleasantly surprised by it. And then I went in to watch it a second time with Anne, and my appreciation grew, and then I came out saying, forget pleasantly surprised. I loved it. I loved Aladdin. I had so much fun with it. Again, not going to be a top 10 film of the year for me, but it was really enjoyable. Will Smith was a great genie. I thought the cast was really good. The music was good. Visually, it was good. I thought it was a wonderfully charming film, and I had a really good time with it. And I'm glad you enjoyed it, Sully. Even if we disagree about Lion King, I'm glad you enjoyed Aladdin, my friend. All right, where are we at here? Tom Van de Werdorf writes, R.I.P. Rutger Hauer. As a fellow Dutch, it really hits me. I hope his career doesn't get forgotten like Tears in the Rain. What is your favorite movie from him? And again, we lost such a incredibly talented dude, such a powerful screen presence was a Rutger Hauer. And again, my favorite, I go to Lady Hawk. I just keep going back to Lady Hawk. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that on the John Campea Show tomorrow, but thank you for paying honor to him like that, Tom. I appreciate that. All right, next up, Daryl Gann writes, John, guys, Rutger Hauer has died. Clearly, this happened during the show, and a lot of people started writing in about it. Sad day, 75, absolutely a sad day. No doubt about it. So thank you for honoring him by writing about that, Daryl. Rob J00 also writes in about Rutger Hauer, saying, Rutger Hauer's just passed away at 75 years old. Terrible loss for the film fan community. Razman's Realty writes, over under 50%. Disney will allow D23 to be streamed on Disney+. Well, since Disney Plus won't be active yet, by the time D23 happens, I'm going to have to take under 50% because when D23 is going on, Disney Plus won't be online yet. They won't want to fire it up yet. I believe it doesn't fire up until September or October, and I think D23 happens after that. Hold on a second. Let me just double check that. D23 date. 2019. D23 is, where is it? It starts, I believe, August 23rd. Yes, it starts August 23rd, and unless I'm mistaken, that means it's not yet D20 or Disney Plus, I should say, isn't active yet. So pretty much zero on 50%. Now they might put up after the fact. They might put up all the stuff from D23 on Disney Plus later when Disney Plus does launch. They might upload all the D23 stuff, but it won't be doing it live, that's for sure. Okay, Epic Berserker writes, D23 Marvel Studios Pavilion, they will have exclusive Avengers Endgame video experience, which sounds very cool. Are you thinking of going? Yeah, I am thinking of going. Disney wrote to me to ask if I was interested in applying for media credentials for it. In years past, I've turned it down, but this year, me and Chris Carr did submit for media credentials for D23. I don't expect to hear back for another couple of weeks. So I haven't heard back whether or not we've been accepted to get media credentials or not, but this year I did what I have not done in previous years, which is actually apply for it. So we should be able to let you know in a couple of weeks if Chris and I are actually going to go down and cover D23 this year. Okay, next up, S. Beam writes, I'm not saying it's the only formula. I agree with you that it's not. I'm just tired of Superman. We were given Aquaman, Shazam, Wonder Woman. That's one of two. Great movies. Now give me Lanterns, Flash. Give me something to follow and not just end in a single film. Give me a great story and story arc. Well, first of all, as I gotta say, I disagree with you again, brother. That doesn't mean you're wrong. You could be right and I could be wrong, but I'm just letting you know, as my fellow film fan, I disagree with you. All of the greatest films of all time are single movie stories. The Godfather, despite the fact that there was The Godfather 2, The Godfather alone is one of the greatest films of all time. Lawrence of Arabia, single film, arguably the greatest film of all time. Citizen Kane, single film, arguably the greatest film of all time. Ben-Hur, single film, arguably the greatest film of all time. Apocalypse Now, single film, arguably by some people, greatest film of all time. I mean, all the best films are single shot films, it seems like. So I don't think you need to have a big series of films in order for it to be one of the greatest things ever and to be super rich and super in depth, because the best films ever made are all those. Now, some of them are series films like Lord of the Rings, like Star Wars, whatever, like a couple of maybe The Dark Knight, although I'm not a big fan of The Dark Knight Rises, but I don't think having multiple films is one of the criteria to make a film good. Anyway, and now the final one today, and then we are all caught up, comes to us from Tiberius Funk, is that what it is? Tiberius Funk writes, the Mr. Rogers Show was never shown in the UK. That's interesting. I have friends in their 30s to 50s who don't know him. With worldwide box office so important these days, how well do you think the Tom Hanks movie will do outside of America? It's not important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying foreign markets aren't important or foreign audiences aren't important. But when you make a movie like A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, when you make a movie about Mr. Rogers, you're not making a movie to make $400 million. You're not making a movie to make $600 million. That's not your biggest concern, clearly. They want to make a profit, and they probably will. But clearly, when you even greenlight a movie like this, you have to greenlight it understanding we are hoping to make some money on this, but we know we're not going to make a huge windfall on it. This isn't a blockbuster film. And as such, making massive amounts of money overseas really aren't that important. you can be profitable and make money just by getting enough in the US. Because this is a prestige movie. This is a movie that's getting made to get Oscar buzz, to get Oscar nominations, to generate money off that buzz, and generate enough to be profitable and make money for everybody without it needing to be a $500 million film. You know, you make a new Superman movie, you need that thing to make $600-700 million. You make a Mr. Rogers movie, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, you're not thinking in those terms. So I think, honestly, you can't expect big money from this movie overseas. You just can't. But that's okay. They knew that when they greenlit this movie. To me, I gotta feel like the way they're thinking about this movie right now is anything we make overseas is just gravy. Anything we make overseas, whether it's in China, which I doubt it's even going to be released in China, but whether it's in the UK, whether it's in Japan, or whether it's in Italy or wherever, any money they make in those markets is just gravy on top. It's just gravy on top. Because this movie is clearly being made to be an Oscar level, an excellent kind of movie, rather than one that makes them tons and tons and tons of money. And so I don't really think that's their biggest concern. Anyway, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion videos. We are now all caught up from all the questions from this morning's show. Don't forget, guys, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow. That's on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's going to be me, Aaron Cummings, Chris Carr. We're already working on a bunch of stuff. Obviously, one of the things we're going to be talking about is the new Batman movie, which just added Rogue One cinematographer. We're going to be talking, obviously, about Rutger Hauer and a whole bunch of other things as well. Make sure you join us for that. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.